Dick,
Yeah.
take a look out of starboard.
Oh my god, it looks like a huge...
Hello everyone, Skippy here, and welcome to One Piece episode 984. Directed by Yasunori Koyama and supervised by Shigefumi Shingaki. It's been a bit longer than usual, but Yasunori Koyama's next episode is finally here and looks just as promising as his other efforts in the past 6 or so months, even if the preview tries not to show too much, leaving some surprises for what he can do with the direction and overall content of the episode, which just makes me even more excited for the final product. Sure, I really do wish he'd start being paired with supervisors that are far better than what he keeps getting, with Shingaki's groggy and bulbous art like always not really being what I'd call my favorite, but if Nuki managed to not completely take over the quality of his previous episodes, it shouldn't be a worry at all as we finally get this raid-sized ball rolling again. So will episode 984 be another fantastic episode from one of the most exciting directors on the show currently? Let's get back to the Konjiki Kagura and find out. This episode covers the first 8 pages and pages 15 and 16 of chapter 979. And surprisingly, despite a big section of the original source material not being present, this episode is paced pretty damn well all things considered, and that once again has to do with filler and rearranging. Not only is stuff that's implied to happen after Luffy and Zoro leave actually shown instead of just simply hinted at, like Luffy going after Kid and Zoro promptly going after Luffy because of it, but there's a lot more extensions to even the most normal of content every which way, like Luffy entering the party itself and Zoro similarly bumming around it. That's still more than make the episode feel like stuff is actually going on within it, so you don't notice how little it really covers, because there's just so much added to the original content that almost feels required for the plot to move the way that it is. Hammering in how Zoro would get mad enough to make a move after hearing all the Beast Pirates talk shit about Ebiso and the Leftovers town, as well as some added scenes with Luffy reminiscing about Tama before he gets hit with the bean pot. And if even that's not enough, there's still some more additions to be had with an added seed of Kiku worrying about Luffy and Ko's recklessness that isn't particularly necessary but is appreciated nonetheless. And despite the fact that the Tobiropo being ordered to find Kaido's son isn't shown in this episode, meaning it's likely going to be arranged to one that feels more appropriate, we get an anime original scene of them being ordered into Kaido's room regardless that includes more fun Ultime page 1 antics that I can tell I'm gonna love. Sure, I get that some may be upset that Zoro used Conqueror's Haki a whole lot earlier than its intended reveal later on in the arc, but it's up to your own interpretation, and personally the fact that it was glossed over pretty quickly didn't make it all that jarring or upsetting to me. Like always, it all comes together to really fill in the blanks that the manga slacked on, making it all a much more whole experience and feeling narratively cohesive and not all over the place. And while I admittedly wouldn't have cared if the Tobiropo and Kaido conversation was in this episode or not, I feel now after the fact that making almost every plot beat well-rounded by extending content really helped it out in the long run, and made an episode that still would have been pretty good that much better by continuing the trend that Ishitani's episode set forth. It almost goes without saying that Koyama is one of the most creative directors on One Piece right now, and by far at Toei in general. And I feel like that's once again put on display here in a lot of different ways. Due to the episode taking place in many different areas, there's a lot of room for fun, serious, or comedic timing and visuals to bring a slightly artistic flair to this episode. Going all the way from the awesome calligraphy-like structure of Kinemon and Co. as their story with Kanjuro is briefly touched upon again, to the bustling neon colors of the Konjiki Kagura that help what is limited animation look a ton more vibrant, even if it might be a little too overdone in areas. There's an insane amount of it all here, and it's all extremely frequent as well, which helps this storyboard feel a bit more consistently strong in my opinion compared to 971, as good as I found what Koyama did there. He's just been let into this huge sandbox to play in content-wise, and that allows him to do some cool things that we're used to seeing from him, while also trying out some new stuff too in order to see what works for him in the future. With my favorite part of all of of it by far being the red bean soup being used as a means of transitioning from scene to scene towards the intense end of the episode. And when coupling it with some effortless and well done comedic timing that understands the characters extremely well, and is made even a bit funnier by the board itself shouting Sanji in literal darkness as his horny hope is all but lost, as well as having Ulti bounce page one's head up and down very lively in their little moment, Koyama's efforts truly help what is otherwise a fairly average episode animation-wise look great. And while the odd correction here or there from Shingaki may slip by and look chock full of his titanic chins and bulbous and unappealing facial features, there are thankfully also some corrections from him that aren't too bad, and the chief supervisors do more than enough to help the episode get by art-wise. While I still wish he was paired with a better supervisor, as well as given an episode that has a lot more to play around with animation-wise in terms of staff, Koyama again showed the true strength of his storyboards and direction to make an episode that, while again is mostly setup-based, a huge joy to watch and witness all the way through, and standing as the second strongest episode this month by far. Hopefully next time I cover an episode by him though, he's given content and animation staff that are just as big as his ambitions directorially. In the meantime though, we've got next week's episode 985 that surprisingly yet unsurprisingly, like last week's preview, doesn't show a whole lot, and this time around it shows so little that it's a bit hard to comment on it. But what we can see of Kazuya Hisata's corrections in animation look as extremely angular as they've always been, and it looks like some filler with Zoro and his storyline will be featured as well, so hopefully that will give Tokoro and Ko more scenes to play around with, along with hopefully what the episode should cover in its latter half. Anyways guys, that's it for now. I'm Skippy, and yeah, now it all makes sense why Shingaki wanted to animate that scene in particular.